I had a bad date a literal month ago, but I can't get it out of my head, so I need you guys to tell me if it's actually as bad as I think it is. So it was my third date with this guy, and I just, like, wasn't really vibing so much. We had a really good conversation, but I just, like, wasn't attracted to him the way I needed to be. So I knew that at the end of this date, it was, like, a make or break date. Like, I knew that, like, this was the last one. If I wasn't feeling it by the end of this date, I was gonna have to, like, tell him, like, sorry, I can't do this. But he was, like, really into me, so much so that he got me the Leve album, because I mentioned once that I wanted it, which, like, great memory. Like, love a guy that has a good memory like that. But I was really uncomfortable because I'm like, you're spending $40 on me when I know that we're this. Yeah, so that was already like an uncomfortable start, and so he hands it to me like right away. I'm like, thanks, are you really sure you want to give this to me? Like, this is $40. Like, I know that it's not like a lot technically, but it's like, to me it's a significant amount of money. He was like, yeah, I got it because I saw something that someone would like for someone that I like, so I got it. And I was like, that's a really sweet explanation, but I'm just like not a romantic person like that. So I was like, okay. That part was like fine. So part of the reason why I want to turn this guy down is because I'm just like, I'm not feeling the attraction to him. And so when we go, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit across from him because I wanna like look at your face, because I wanna like see your face. But he's like, can I sit next to you? I'm like, why? Like we can sit across from each other because I want to look at his face, but when I'm sitting next to him, I like have more room to not look at his face. And so he's just like, yeah, I mean, like, I sit across from my boss in a meeting, and so I sit next to people that I like. And I was like, that's cute, but like there's just something like, I don't know, I wanted to sit across from you, but like, whatever, cool. That's also like not a bad thing. Like, these are like little yellow flags until the red. So we're sitting next to each other, and by the way, this date is at a Krispy Kreme, but not in a Krispy Kreme because the Krispy Kreme is closed like literally 5 minutes after we got our donuts. So we're sitting outside on like picnic benches. So he's just like, I need to go to the bathroom. I'm like, great. The Krispy Kreme's closed, but there's a gas station like right next to it, and you can use that bathroom. And he's like, yeah, but there's also bushes right there. And I was like, haha, great joke. Not a joke. And so we're sitting in front of a fence that's like lined with bushes, and so I'm like, okay, he's like he gets up, and so I'm like, oh, so he's like really gonna pee in the bushes. And I'm like, okay, he's probably gonna like step down a couple steps. No, he goes right in front of the picnic benches, and like literally, here is me, here is him peeing, like I hear the stream. That's not something I want to hear, especially with a guy that I'm not planning on continuing to go out with. And so that was not a sound that I like to hear. And thankfully he had the decency to turn around, so I didn't like see anything. But I mean, I wasn't looking anyway. I was staring straight up at the sky, and he was like, I'm done now, you can like look at me now. And I'm like, the sky is really pretty right now, because I like fully couldn't look at him. And then he goes to his car, which is like a couple steps over, farther from me than where he peed, and then he goes into his car for a water bottle to wash his hands, which good on him. But I hear that it's sparkling water, and for some reason that gave me like a little extra ick. Like, man had to wash his hands with sparkling water. But either way, so that was probably like the worst part of the date. But then he comes back and he sits next to me, and like, I don't like touching. I have told him that like touching is not my thing. Like, I'm not talking about like holding hands or like hugging. I'm talking about like touching in general. Like, I'm just not a touchy person. It's not something that makes me comfortable. But like, he like sits really close to me, like continues inching and inching closer to me. And then at one point our legs are touching, and everything's just like quiet because there was like a break in conversation, whatever. And so I go, so he's like, so what are you thinking? Like, try to be cute. But like, I can't think cute because you're touching me. So I go, I think you're touching me. And he's like, oh, is that okay? And I go, no, I don't think so. And he goes, oh, okay, sorry. And so he moves his legs so they're not touching me, but he still continues inching closer to me. And at this point, I'm like on the edge of the bench. Like, there's nowhere else for me to go. So I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like trying my best not to touch him because I'm just like not feeling that. But then I accidentally make a joke about like, haha, that's how you know how that men don't care about women's bodies, because like that's just the type of feminist I am. And so he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, I'm like down to talk about serious topics. So we're talking about feminism. And so one of my examples is like, oh, so like there's no female crash test dummies. We don't know how women's bodies react in a car crash. And he has the audacity to go, oh, well, if they haven't made it yet, it's just clearly not a big enough priority for the movement, as in feminism. And I'm like, we are Jewish. There is still anti-Semitism. Does that mean that anti-Semitism is not a big enough problem for the movement to fix? So but it was so funny because the more we're arguing, the more away from me he's scooting. So I'm like, I'm just firing off. I'm just continuing to argue. And then at one point I'm like, okay, now we're both on like complete opposite sides of the bench. I can stop. And he just like stops and he's like, oh, look at that. We're like so far away from each other right now. I guess I moved away. And I'm like, really? Oh my god, it's so strange. And so then anyway, so then blah blah blah, we're exiting the date and he goes, just tell me if you're gonna end this with me. I need to know now. I'm like, you don't want me to like sleep on it so that I can like text you later and not be as awkward? And he's like, no, just tell me now. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is gonna work because you peed in front of me, and the feminist stuff was really off-putting, and just like, I didn't say any of that part, but that was head. And so he goes silent. He sits on top of the picnic bench. By the way, important, he drives like a mom car, like a van. He puts on his leather jacket quietly, full silence, and I just like, and I can see that like somehow his earth is shattered because apparently he was like really obsessed with me, and so his earth is shattered. And he's sitting on the picnic bench. He's putting on his leather jacket. He's zipping it all the way up. He's putting on his leather driving gloves to drive his mom car. Leather driving, and then he just goes on for another 20 minutes about his love life. And I'm like, just standing there silently nodding, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And like, I can't, this man is in crisis. Like, I can't leave. And so at one point, he finally gets up and he stands like this close to my face and he's like, can I hug you? And I'm like, fine. So then he hugs me for so long. It felt like we were sitting there for a year, and all I can smell is the leather jacket of his jacket, and I can't, and I'm like cringing so hard, but he's thankfully tall enough that like we're not like face to face, so he can't see my cringing face, and so we're doing that, and then he finally lets go and walks me to my car, and then he's so close to my car that like I think he wants to get in, and then he hugs me again. That one was not consensual. And so he hugs me again, and so I hug him with one arm and I literally like pat his back like, wrap it up, dude. And I'm like, do you want the record back? He's like, no, it's to show my affection. I'm like, okay, cool. And then we're parked right next to each other, so I can't even like get in my car and like scream and like get all my emotion out because he's right there. So I immediately drive away, and then I scream on the highway. Is that as bad as I think it is, or am I just like sensitive? I don't know.